Right. Okay. Good. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Um, Welcome to the executive meeting on Tuesday, the 13th of January, 2026. Thank you for coming out. Item one is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies?
Yeah, we have apologies from Councillor Britton, Glover Ward, and Councillor Wilson.
Thank you very much. Item two is leaders' announcements. So we've got some sad news to share tonight. I'm sure some of you were already aware, but former councillor Angela Alder died over the Christmas period. And in addition, an officer at East Herts, Tiffy Price, also passed away just before Christmas. And so I'm sure you all want to share with me our sadness at the news and send the family and friends of both Tiffy and Angela all our best wishes for the future. Right. Normal announcement is, of course, we're webcast, so please use your microphone as always. Item 3, minutes of the 18th of November 2025. So we have the minutes. You've had them in front of you on the ModGov system. Are there any corrections, comments to be made? So otherwise, I'll ask for a proposer. Marnie.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I propose we accept these minutes.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Could I have a second? Alex, thank you very much. So these minutes have been proposed and seconded as presented. Can I have a vote, please, for all those in favour? Thank you very much. Any abstentions or anyone against? No, that's passed. Thank you. Item 4 is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest tonight? No. Lovely. Thank you very much. So the next item, item 5, is the parking strategy, off-street TROs, objections report, and proposed changes to car park operational hours, tariffs, and maximum stay periods, which is on pages 18 to 52 of the agenda pack. And I'll hand over to Councillor Tim Hoskin to present it.
Thanks, Ben. Good evening. This report that you've got in the pack seeks approval for targeted amendments to East Hertfordshire's District Council's off-street parking arrangements. It follows public consultation carried out from the 9th of October 2025 to the 6th of November, a period which allowed residents, businesses and visitors to provide feedback on the draft proposals. As a result of the consultation and following analysis of feedback, some of the original proposals have been amended, and I'll outline those later on in this introduction, but they're also seen in section 6 of the report. Overall, the proposed changes detailed in the paper are intended to improve the availability and efficient use of parking spaces within East Herts Council's car parks by increasing capacity, principally through better space turnover. They also support the introduction of standardised operational hours and a consistent charging approach across rural car parks, something we haven't currently got. And it's in line with the objectives of the East Herts parking strategy, which was adopted by this council in February last year, 2025. A well-responded consultation. There were 636 responses via the online consultation. And in addition, we had formal written objections stroke comments were submitted by the chair of Buntingford Chamber of Commerce, Buntingford Town Council, Hertford Town Council, and a number of Sawbridgeworth Town Councillors. All responses and objections have been reviewed and analysed by officers. There are 12 separate recommendations, which you can see listed in the paper, labelled A to L, and they fall into 3 broad headings. First heading is proposed changes to create standard operational hours and a consistent way of charging across the rural car parks. The second are proposed changes to provide additional capacity and promote the better use of our space in urban car parks. And thirdly, proposed changes for introducing a 3-hour limit for free blue badge parking in all of East Herts Council car parks. And those changes are again intended to improve turnover and availability of accessible spaces, while still supporting consistent and effective parking management across the district. So I don't intend to go through all the amendments in this introduction or proposal. They're all detailed in the report, but I wanted to make a few comments about the blue badge parking changes. Put simply, what the changes propose is to regularise parking arrangements for blue badge holders with the current street arrangements relating to single and yellow lines. Blue badge holders can currently park for 3 hours on sections of the road which have a single or double yellow line painted on them for a maximum of 3 hours. They're subject to some other restrictions which are detailed on the website, but make perfect sense when you look at them, such as loading bays and bus stops, etc. But that's a freedom that they enjoy. And this will remain, but in addition, under these proposed changes, this limitation will also apply for using off-street car parking. The proposals were developed in line with the East Herts parking strategy, which I said was approved last year, and the relevant county transport plans, and were subject to statutory consultation with Hertfordshire County Council, as well as consultation with the police and fire and rescue service. The consultation also clarified that separate tariff increases previously agreed and aligned with the Consumer Price Index, and those adjustments were detailed for April 2026. They were included in this paper, but aren't subject to the consultation, but they were included for completeness. The Council is incredibly grateful to everyone who gave feedback on our proposals back in October. We've listened carefully to what people have told us, and while we believe reversing the changes would not be the right approach, we have sought to reduce their impact where we can. And this has been done specifically as follows. There are now, in the final proposal, no CPI inflation for rural car parks. And you'll see these detailed in Appendix B as a straight read across. You can do the comparison yourself. The all-day rate for Sundays that has been introduced has been reduced to £1.50 from the proposed £2.10. And the third one, for blue badge holders, they will be able to extend their time beyond 3 hours remote from their vehicle. So that the original clause had a with no return condition. That's been removed. So resident blue badge holders can leave their car in the original parking space, can, through whatever app they decide to use, extend the use to 3 hours. They can also return to the vehicle if that's their preferred option, but it means that the car can stay put and the period can be extended. So as you can imagine, managing parking in a way that satisfies everyone is always challenging. But I'm confident that these changes will bring a greater consistency of charging across the district and help us to better manage demand in our busiest locations. The changes align with the Council's wider parking strategy approved by the Exec in February last year, and it sets out guiding principles for parking across the district, including encouraging more sustainable travel choices. In addition, these changes will help the Council address its current funding gap and manage future financial challenges, ensuring it can continue delivering local services despite the ever-increasing budget pressures. And we'll hear more of that, no doubt, in the agenda as we go forward. So I'd like to recommend this paper and its proposed changes for approval.
Thanks, Tim. Could I have a seconder, please? Okay, thank you, Marnie. Thanks very much. So comments, questions, thoughts? Alex?
Thank you, and it's good to see that the option for people with disabled blue badges will be able to use the parking app, stay there all day. Is that change also? Is it what are other councils doing with regards to blue badge and charging them in car parks? Do we know?
Yeah, there's a comparison in the paper, I think Appendix A, which shows you across across Hertfordshire, what the authorities are doing. And it varies. There are some which are doing Very similar to ours. North Herts is a sort of in and out. That in some car parks they apply a 3 hours. Welling is 3 hours, and you'll see the details. And perhaps just it's worth a small advert. But the national parking platform, East Herts has been one of the early people to adopt that. And that enables you to use whichever app that you've got loaded on your phone. And currently I've got 6 loaded on my phone. But you can choose your favorite depending on what they charge you in terms of, data traffic charges. And that will work in any of our car parks. So you just have to have your preferred app, and you can change that according to the charges that they offer you. And that will apply in any of East Herts car parks. And that was in place from January the 6th. So that's live now. So that's the national parking platform. You'll find it wherever you find it, wherever you shop for your apps.
And presumably there'll be some.
There's a press release, for
lovely.
that, which has been prepared. Yeah,
Great. No, thanks, Tim. Any other questions? Yeah. Yep. Ian?
Yeah, this is a detail really, but I'm sure on Sunday I was in a car park next to the police station in Bishop Stortford, and all day parking on a Sunday there is £2, and you just said you're putting up to £1.50. So is that an anomaly?
It is, Ian. It's so the £1.50 comment relates to rural car parks, not the urban car parks, of which the Bishop Stortford one is an urban car park. Yeah. Appendix B has got a breakdown of all those, and it's quite a difficult one, and I'm grateful for the office of the effort they've put into this to try and clarify, but it is quite a difficult thing to project, all the current position, the proposed changes, and then the revised changes. I think they've captured it, but it's worth having a look through in terms of getting the detail out of that. Yeah, so I fancy that's not an anomaly. I think that's just the difference between urban and rural.
Okay, thank you. I think it's great to see that the rural car parks are staying. I think are not changing. I think that's a welcome. I think many residents will see that as a welcome.
I hope so. And
move.
Nobody likes paying for parking. Nobody likes paying for anything.
No.
But there are mechanisms where if we don't have a sort of parking strategy, a parking approach in place, it does become a little bit Wild West.
Yeah.
And we've seen examples of that locally, which once they've gone rogue, are quite difficult to manage. So this is a way of keeping through strict adherence to TROs, on-street officers. It's a way of making sure everybody gets a fair approach to parking.
So the last task is to try and ensure that county can put in TROs in less than
that would be marvellous in
2
less
years.
than a calendar year. Yeah.
Miney.
Thank you, Leader. I would just like to say thank you very much to the executive member and the officer team behind this for all their hard work on this. It's a huge piece of work, and I do respect the fact they've tried very hard to be fair to everybody, while at the same time trying to cover our costs and also to try to make people aware of our limited space and the impact that all our travelling does have on everybody. So I do like to congratulate you very much for all that you've done.
Much appreciated.
So thank you.
Great. Okay. We've had a discussion. Unless there are any more comments or questions, we can move on to the recommendations, which for this item are on pages 19 to 20 of the agenda pack. I'm not going to read them out. There are, as Tim said, there are 12. But yeah, there's quite a lot. So can I have a show of hands to in support of the recommendation, please? Thank you very much. And anyone against or abstaining? No, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Right, item 6 is the draft budget 2026 to 27 and the medium-term financial plan 2026 to 2031, which is on pages 53 to 105 of the agenda pack. So in the absence of Councillor Carl Britton, I will be presenting the report in this case, I'm sure with lots of help from Brian Molden as well. So item 6, this report provides members with an updated medium-term financial plan for the period 2026-27 through to 2030-31, incorporating a number of adjustments, as well as the outcome of the provisional settlement received from the government. The outcome of the fair funding review was in line with the more optimistic of our previous assumptions. This still means that support from government will decline over the next 3 years, just not by as much as was feared. Details of the settlement are outlined in section 3 of this report, with a summary of the settlement detailed at 3.14. It should be noted that the figures for council tax here are government estimates, and our own estimates are lower than these figures. After factoring this in, our core spending power should still rise slightly over the next 3 years, with council tax increases offsetting the loss of government funding. The increase is likely to be lower than inflation, however, leading to continued pressure on spending. The review of budgets since the last MTFP has revealed a number of other financial pressures that our council is facing. These are detailed in section 4 of the report and give rise to an additional 706,000 of pressure in the 26-27 budget. In addition, it is anticipated that there will be costs associated with LGR, with local government reorganisation, that need to be factored into our planning. At this point, it is impossible to know the costs of LGR, but we do know that government is expecting the costs to be borne by us councils rather than being covered by government grants. It is therefore prudent to factor this into our planning, and we've allocated a total of £1 million for this over the next 2 years, with half of this coming from reserves and half from the revenue budget. Further budget pressures may come from Beam, where the growth of the business continues to be slower than hoped. It is therefore prudent to provide a contingency for next year of £203,000. A new Beam business plan will be produced in the new year, which will build on the experience of the last 12 months and hopefully provide a more reliable forecast for the years ahead. To counter the reduction in government funding, as well as the additional pressures on budget, the council needs to both continue to reduce its costs through greater efficiencies and to generate more revenue to become more sustainable over the long term. Measures to achieve this are outlined in section 5. Fees and charges are becoming a steadily more important source of revenue for the council, and therefore fees and charges will rise roughly in line with inflation to maintain funding for the essential services that this council provides for our residents. As Councillor Hoskin has already outlined in the previous item, following the consultation on parking charges, it has been decided that some rural car parks will not have the standard weekday rates increased as originally proposed, and Sunday charges will also be maintained at current levels. Full details are provided in appendices B1 and B2. The most significant change to the council's financial position has come from the triennial valuation of the Hertfordshire Pension Fund. This year, it has shown the pension fund to be in good health, and this has resulted in a reduction in primary contribution rates from 19.8% to 17.1%. And a complete cessation of the secondary rate. The net effect of these changes is a budget setting of just under £1 million per year. Obviously, this is very welcome news and has helped us to set a balanced budget. Some of the savings will be placed in a reserve to provide a buffer against any future increases in pension costs arising from the next triennial report, or to support any costs that may fall on the council as a result of local government reorganisation. In addition, a new reserve will be created, providing the council with flexibility to respond to emerging priorities and pressures. The reserve will be available for executive drawdown as and when proposals are brought forward and agreed in line with the council's priorities. A detailed review of the council's earmarked reserves has also been completed to ensure that resources are aligned with strategic priorities and financial resilience. Details of this review are provided in sections 6 to 6.5 of the report and in Appendix C. Finally, Section 25 statement is provided in Appendix D. This is a statutory report that accompanies the annual budget for East Herts Council. It provides members with an independent assessment of the robustness of the council's budget estimates and the adequacy of its reserves, ensuring that financial decisions are made with clear understanding of the risks, assumptions, and the council's overall financial resilience. In summary, the Chief Financial Officer concludes that the 26-27 budget is both realistic and sustainable, with reserves considered adequate to manage foreseeable risks and support the Council's medium-term strategy. The recommendations are on pages 53 and 54, and I'd like to propose this report. Could I have a seconder, please? Oh, Sarah, thank you very much. Comments, questions? Marnie.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I have a question related to section 3.13 about homelessness, rough sleeping and domestic abuse. It says somewhere that the grants have been all consolidated and rolled up into one. But in relation to this homelessness and rough sleeping, domestic abuse, there's another section for temporary accommodation funding that has now been rolled into the revenue support grant. And my worry with that is that it might mean that there is less money to spend on temporary accommodation because it's been separated out away from where it was before with the homelessness, rough sleeping and domestic abuse section. So my question is, how can we assure that there is enough funding, that the funding for temporary accommodation still is available and still continues? Is it possible to protect that?
That is a question for Brian, I think.
Thank you, Chair. Whoops. Yes, I can confirm that it's around £400,000 that we got in 25-26 for TA. We are allocating the same amount of money in 26-27 to support TA for that year. So it's no worse off. Obviously, we're doing a piece of work with Jonathan, the Director of Communities, around this grant and obviously around the homelessness and rough sleeping grant. Because as you said, currently we received around 900 to £1 million this year, which was then roughly split 49% for TA, 51% for homelessness and prevention. So again, as you said, the government has now rolled in TA into the revenue support grant, which obviously we are now allocating it separately for TA expenditure in 26-27.
Thank you very much. That's very reassuring. Thank you.
Any other questions, Alex?
Thank you, Leader. I'm not sure whether it's in this report or it's one of the other ones, but that I saw there was an amount allocated for the Hertford Green Space Renewal Project. And I wondered whether that is that for the phase that's already happened, or is that for the next phase, if they're successful in getting the Heritage Lottery Fund?
Don't believe it's in this report. It
Right.
might be another report.
Okay, I'll save my.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Yes, Ian.
Thank you, Leader. I've got a couple of questions and they probably relate to my misunderstanding of stuff. The first one is Beam. I thought Beam was more or less washing its face, was more or less covering its costs, but here you've got contingency of 203,000. Is that mainly because of the delay to the food offering? And my second question is that we've managed to find savings of £1 million on the pensions, and can you just summarise how that's come about? Thank you.
So yes, in relation to the Beam, within the 26-27 budget, we have a proposed surplus of 200,000 to be achieved from the Beam. As you said, quite correctly said, the facilities around the food and beverage has only just started up in September, October time this year, or 25, and obviously that is still growing. So again, I'm mindful that it may take longer than 26-27 before we start making that surplus that we've built into the budget based on the business plan. one of the processes we're doing this year will be to look at the business plan for the beam and to reassess whether what was originally proposed in that business plan is still a potentially viable plan, or whether it needs to be amended to reflect what's the actual position is at the moment. So again, that is a bit of a contingency of 200k just to support the council in that if it's still growing and takes time to grow, then obviously we'll have that bit of capacity to be maintained. So your second question was, sorry?
And the pensions, we
I
managed
see,
to find savings of nearly £1 million.
Yep.
I just wondered if you could just summarise how we've managed to get to that. I mean, it's a brilliant position, but how we managed to get that to that.
So every 3 years, the pension fund is valued by actuaries. Obviously, it's all done through the Hertfordshire Pension Fund, and obviously that work was carried out during 2025. That work takes about 6 to 9 months for the actuaries to go through that process. They then report back to councils late in December time, 2025. And obviously, based on what they've calculated as their assumptions around where they think the pension fund will be over the next 3 years, they then ascertain how much we need to put into that pension fund. So as Ben said, we are currently around 107% fully funded on the pension fund. So that has meant that our primary rate has been able to reduce. So for every £1 we pay an employee, we've got to pay a contribution of 17.1% going forward. Currently, it's 19.8. It will be set now for the next 3 years. So that is certainty. And obviously in 2028, they will carry out the next actuary valuation. And obviously that might well change. The secondary rate, which was a lump sum that we would have paid each year, represented the elements from previous decisions that would have been made around maybe early retirement, ill health, where obviously the council would then be liable for that pension strain on the pension fund. So obviously, again, because now the pension fund is fully funded, there was not a need based on the assumptions that the actuaries have built into their model that is needed for East Herts Council.
Okay, yeah, Bob.
Thank you very much. If I may, I've got 1 or 2 points. Some of them are very sort of specific and some are rather broad. If we just start with the pension, one of the things I enjoyed most when I was a Hertfordshire County Councillor until May of this year was being on the Pensions Committee. I was on it for 7 of my 8 years, and it works very hard with our external advisors to deliver the best outcome we possibly can. So it's fantastic to see these results coming through into the East Herts accounts. It's not quite appropriate to do this, but the senior officer at Hertfordshire County Council responsible for the pension side of things is a chap called Patrick Towie, who is fantastic. And if I could just place on record that he is just a wonderful officer, very, very, very good at his job. So thank you very much. If I might just use that to springboard, it says in the report, and you've just mentioned, that the employer contribution for the local government pension scheme is, as far as we're concerned, is of the order of 17%. That's beyond the wildest dreams of anybody in the normal world. When we report broadly to our public, do we report in a way that makes it very easy for the public to see what the employment cost is here? There are also a couple of other items, aren't there, in your report to the effect that because of the 4% increase in salaries, you've had to provide more for the wage bill. So all in all, the salary, staff, employment cost overhead is very significant for us. So my broad question is, when we report, do we find a way to encapsulate that in a very, very visible way for our residents and taxpayers?
Not at the moment I'm aware of. We obviously report it based on service expenditure, which is at a high level. The budget papers don't go down into that detail. That can be available. Trying to think whether the statement of accounts would provide further information on whether it provided by employees and premises, but I don't think it does, apart from senior officers where it will provide a split for how much is incurred on senior staff. But we don't provide it generally.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brian. I mean, I'll leave it with you, but you obviously residents are under pressure, aren't they? It's difficult economic times. As I say, the pension provision in local government is beyond the wildest dreams of most people. So I leave with you the idea that maybe we could provide in our reporting somewhere a very, very easy to read and understand snapshot, so that our residents can see at a glance what our overhead cost is, and that includes the pension cost and all that sort of thing. So second question. Right, this is very specific. I've got to find the reference in the paper. Can you just remind me at least what we're doing, because I can't find it now, with Broxbourne Council, because they want more money from us. Well, what are we doing with Broxbourne? What are we up to with Broxbourne?
So yeah, I think what you're referring to is there's a £15,000 growth cost in there, where Broxbourne Council is now assisting us with providing support 1 day a week for the monitoring of our KPIs and our corporate plan. So again, what we're looking to do going forward is provide more regular updates to members and also to leadership team around the performance of the council. So that individual will be there to obviously collate all that information and bring it together into a report. Don't know if Helen wants anything to that.
I was just going to add to that what actually happened last year was the person within East Herts who performed that function left. We didn't replace them. We took the money as a saving to balance our books. So rather than us paying for a full-time person, we have partnered with Broxbourne for them to provide us with 1 day a week's worth of support to provide members with updates on the performance.
This is 2B, question 2B. We have to do this, do we? It seems a bit invidious that we're shelling money out to Broxbourne who put their charges up. Well, not put their charges up, but it's going to cost us more this year than last year. But must we do this?
It's about being transparent to members for providing them with that information. We would prefer to provide that information. We don't have the resources within the teams that are left to do that. And it just makes sense to try and partner with Broxbourne rather than recruit. And we've done that with a number of other posts, as you'll be aware. So our HR service is currently shared across with Broxbourne. We're also in discussion with Broxbourne about potential for some other posts, but the other way around. So they're losing their facilities manager and they want to know if they can share hours. So then they will pay us. But it's about making sure that we're getting the best value for our residents for the money that we get. And that was the most cost-effective thing to do while ensuring that we weren't going to have to cut any other services, and we put the money in the pot to balance Brian's books.
And then number 3, thank you. Going back to Beam, food and bev. Food and bev was always contemplated as being something that the new theatre would provide to a much greater degree than the old theatre. Why has it been so slow coming on?
Part of that was because we were late in actually getting to the official opening. We opened on time, but you'll be aware that stage 2 wasn't actually open until April last year. And when Steve was appointed as the manager for Beam, there were a lot of other things that took his attention first that were more important, which was around getting the performances in, getting them to be more profitable. And so as a result of that, we did look to see what would be the best thing to do with the space that we had for the food and beverages offering, and we concluded that the best thing would be to go out. So originally, actually, we offered it to local businesses as a space where they could come in and sell street food type offerings on a regular basis. That wasn't very well received. We didn't get any takers on that, and then we recruited a chef for that space. He started, I think, about August time, but he'd spent a couple of months preparing menus, getting menus agreed and learning the facilities. And I believe they started in October. They had a soft launch in October, and the menu is going to be expanded in time for us to be a full offer by the start of the financial year.
Okay, Thank you. Yeah, Tim.
It's question for Brian, I think. That's okay. So we've a bit of a windfall with the pension, which is great news. You know, that's super. How much is that shielding or sort of masking? Whilst we've got a 3-year fair funding settlement, how much of that is masking the fact that our input from central government is dropping all the while, and that, you know, whilst we've got a windfall, we're not out of the woods. We still have to, as Helen said, you know, attention to all the costs of our services and the income. Is that a fair position where we are?
Yeah, I think that is a fair position. I think obviously no one was across Hertfordshire was expecting as big a windfall from the pension fund as what we all got out of it. So again, and it was a surprise for all the CFOs. So it has helped to obviously enable us to have a balanced budget, not only for this year, but also currently for next year, albeit obviously there will be changes before we get to 27, 28. But again, we're in a good position going forward. But beyond that, we'll start having pressures that we'll need to continue to achieve. And obviously included in that is obviously savings that we need to achieve in 26, 27, and also 27, 28 and 28, 29 that will need to be, that's be built in, that we need to make sure we can achieve or find alternative options.
Yeah, Jen.
Thank you. Another question for Brian, I think, just on the pension thing again. So it's good that there's been a surprise. Is there any way of understanding where those sort of surprises have come from? Is it just that equities have been higher and the interest rates have been higher than they were in COVID? Is that where the gains have been seen, or do you not get that level of detail?
We do get a lot of detail around that, and obviously they go into all the assumptions behind mortality of, you know, when they think people will die, when obviously the changes to any kind of like changes to pension rules. For example, you know, we currently can retire from the age of 55 based on certain criteria. However, that's going to move to 57 come 2028. So again, all these little changes to the pension fund, as well as you said, you know, the performance on the rates that we are getting from the pension has also improved. So there are many different factors behind the assumptions behind that, and obviously how they determine what CPI or RPI or what the rates they think will be going forward is obviously also have a big impact on whether they go up and down.
Yeah, Alex.
Thanks. I'd just like to make a comment that staff are also often residents, and they are also people who contribute to the local economy by going out and buying lunch. And in Hertford in particular, we're missing all those people, all those staff that used to work at County Hall. So we're very grateful to the hardworking staff of East Herts who are still here, as long as they are. Thank you.
Great. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Tom.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Leader. As some funds have been set aside for local government reorganisations, okay, I'll ask a question about the finance of it generally. So depending on what configuration comes forward and is agreed, is there a danger that we would have to take on the debts of other councils as they currently stand and have to manage those debts into perpetuity?
Yeah, I mean, the new body will be responsible for that new debt if there is debt going forward. I think across Hertfordshire, the general fund side of things, I think most CFOs will be comfortable with the debt. I think the concern for most CFOs will be the HRA, where the debt is substantially a lot higher than it is on the general fund. So, you know, most of the HRAs within Hertfordshire probably got debt of over £250 million. Again, that was all came out of the self-financing regime that came into force in 2013, where everyone in the HRA had to buy themselves out of the old housing subsidy system. So yes, there is a concern, but again, as I said, I think general fund purpose, the borrowing, there is no real bad borrowing from Hertfordshire authorities as there are in some other councils across the country, it's more the HRA that will be the biggest concern for potential CFOs.
Okay. Any other questions? No, I think we're there. Thank you. That's been a good debate. Really helpful. So the recommendations for this item are detailed on pages 53 to 54 of the agenda pack. There are eight of them. Quite a lot. So please, could we have a show of hands to indicate whether we're in favour or against? All those in favour, please. Thank you very much. Anyone against or abstention? No, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Right, on to item 7, Treasury Management 2025 to 26 mid-year review, which is on pages 106 to 119 of the agenda pack. And again, I'll be presenting on instead of Councillor Carl-Britton. So the Treasury Management 25-26 mid-year review, which is actually shown in Appendix A on page 110. The CIPFA Code of Practice requires the Council to approve Treasury Management reports twice yearly, and this report gives background on the external economic environment for the year. Of particular note to this Council is the 10-year gilt rate, which rose from 4.65% to 4.7% during the 6-month period. The gilt rate is the key factor in determining our cost of borrowing. The report also details this borrowing. Over the period, total external borrowing declined from 64.5 million to 61.5 million pounds, whilst investments fell from 34.1 million to 29.4 million pounds. This means the net borrowing increased by 1.7 million pounds. The reason for this was the continued need to fund the capital programme. Almost all the borrowing in short-term loans is short-term loans. This is because the Council hopes to refinance the loans at a lower interest rate when that becomes possible. It's hoped that with inflation forecast to reduce, interest rates will begin to decline and enable the Council to reduce its interest costs. The gilt rate has also fallen slightly since this report was written, whilst base rates were recently reduced to 3.75%. Of note, on the investment side, is that the Council has now fully withdrawn from the Hermes Property Investment Fund. Over the period, the £12.8 million total investment in property funds reduced to just £2.6 million, with the remaining Lothbury investment now being classed as short-term investment until it's fully wound up. The report also shows that the Council has complied with the CIPFA Treasury Management Code by measuring the prudential indicators. The recommendation on page 106 of this report is to examine and comment on the mid-year Treasury Management Review and prudential indicators for 25-26 and recommend its approval to Council. I'd like to propose this report. Could I have a seconder, please? Tim, thank you very much. Questions, comments? No, I think that looks fairly well covered. Okay. Thank you very much.
Just one thought that always goes through my mind when we get to this short-term loans is there a red line somewhere where we say, oh, well done, that's the point to change? Or are we quite comfortable sat at the short-term loan and, we are free, genuinely free to watch the environment and see when things changed in our favour? Is that, can you assess the risk on that, I suppose, is what I'm asking.
We do monitor the rates on a daily basis. We do have two £25 million loans out with PWLB. They're both due back in 2026. I think one's in June time, one's September time. So we are working closely with our Treasury advisors to understand, when it's best to go out to see what opportunities we've got in relation to refinancing those. We do need to refinance both of those, and obviously that will be happening during 2026. But like I said, we'll be working with our Treasury advisors to work out what's the best scenario, whether we keep it short for a bit longer or whether we go for longer. It all depends on where rates are moving. Obviously, you know, if I was an expert in that, I'll be working in the markets.
Thank you. No other questions? Okay, so the recommendations for this item are detailed on page 106 of the agenda pack. There's just a single recommendation. So I wonder if we could have a show of hands, please, for all those in favour of the item. Thank you very much. Any against or abstentions? No. Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Right, moving on. Moving on to item 8. That's right. The Strategic Risk Register Q2 Monitoring 2025-26, which is on pages 120 to 125 of the agenda pack. Again, I'm presenting on behalf of Councillor Carl Britton. So, a review of the risk register has been carried out by the leadership team, with reviews of both the scores and mitigations. The risk register is attached to the report as an appendix on page 125. One new risk has been identified, which is lack of election candidates, and is shown as risk 9. This arises because there is still uncertainty around the need for district council elections in 2027, and whilst this uncertainty persists, there is a risk that there could be an unwillingness among members to continue for the extended period if there are no elections, or to stand again for potentially just 1 or 2 years if elections do go ahead. All other risks on the corporate risk register remain unchanged following this review. However, risk 8, staff and skills, has undergone a thorough reassessment and mitigation measures have been strengthened. The recommendation is to note the risk register and actions being taken to control and mitigate risk, and I'd like to propose this report to executive. Could I have a seconder, please? Joe, thank you very much. Comments or questions? Joe.
A red light on. I don't know if it's a question for you, Ben, or for you, Helen, but where the leadership has recommended the inclusion of a lack of election candidates, where's that come from? So is that something that other councils are doing? There's something we're doing here. What's the basis? Because I'm surprised about it.
I think it's a general thing, particularly for those councils like ourselves that have got all outs in 27. There are a number of councillors, existing councillors, who were not in. Well, let's go back to 23. There were a lot of councillors in 23 that weren't expecting to get elected. Some of those councillors who were elected were not expecting to go beyond 27. Because of the changes around local government reorganisation, there is a very strong possibility that the 27 elections all outs will be cancelled, and that we will just hold shadow elections for the new authority in 2027. If that happens, there may be a risk, and this is only a maybe risk. There's no, hard and fast evidence, but there may be a risk that some members who no longer wish to carry on being an elected member beyond 27 will resign, and at that point we would have to hold by-elections instead of the all-outs. So it is just, with all of these things, it is just a perception that there could be a risk to the authority for that last shadow year.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about it a fair bit. I think it's a fair risk to consider. Being told at the last minute that you've got to do another year is it could be very trying for some people. And yeah,
to follow up. So what can we do about it, or what can you do about it?
As it happens, I met with MHCLG this afternoon, and I said to MHCLG that we need a very early decision on what's happening in 2027 so that we are able to give assurances to our members, and obviously not just us, but other authorities across the country who are due to have all outs in 27, so that we can then gauge what the likely impact could be. So we will be taking mitigating steps if we know when the elections are actually going to take place or not take place. And they did assure me that they would pass that on to their LGR colleagues. Not that that fills me with hope, but at least I do know that it's being passed on.
Well then, so just to press again, sorry, Helen. So I said, what can we do about it? Yeah, we need to find out if it's going to happen, but I think that's taken as read. What is the mitigation? Or don't we know? If you don't know yet, that's fine. That's fair enough. That's fine.
I don't think we do know yet,
Okay,
but
that's fair enough.
I think it is about assuring those members who are in that position as to what is likely to happen. Because at the moment, I think it's just a bit of an unknown for a lot of people, and some people don't deal with sort of not knowing what's happening very well.
Yeah, and I'd add, I think there's a certain onus on political leaders as well to discuss with our groups and councillors about the risks and about the potential benefits of staying on if they are having doubts. So I think that's there's ways for on both sides where we can help mitigate. Yeah, Alex.
My impression, I might be wrong about this, is that with the current elections that are about to happen for unitary authorities, that the existing councils are being asked to choose whether they want to hold the elections or not. So the government won't mandate it, presumably because they don't want to be seen to be anti-democratic, and they're leaving it up to the local authorities whether to cancel or not.
Yes, so all authorities who have got elections this year were written to by the Secretary of State, and they were asked to, I think the deadline was last week, to write back to the Secretary of State expressing any desire to postpone those elections. As I understand it, in Hertfordshire, nobody was proposing to postpone. Or there may have been just one authority, but in general, everybody wanted to go ahead. They felt that it was right as far as the democratic process stands, that those elections should go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Sarah.
Yeah, sorry, just on this again. It says so long as the council's core, then scarcity of candidates would not impact on the council's ability to conduct its business. Is that in terms of thinking if quite a large group of people do choose not to do the additional year and there's gaps while we're waiting for elections, that wouldn't be a concern? Is that suggesting?
Yes, I think that sounds like a James comment to me. But yeah, I mean, as long as we have got enough members that are still actively elected to represent the residents, then yes, we could carry on operating in that period of time. But it does bring some uncertainty with it, particularly if we get some candidates that come in that are, for example, unknowns within current parties, and we could end up with some people that we might find quite challenging.
Bob.
Question for Helen. You're glad you're here, Helen, aren't you? If we get to this kind of no man's land sort of area, and people say, I don't want to do a year that I never thought I'd do in the first place, there would have to be a by-election, wouldn't there? So part of the risk here is the cost of who knows how many by-elections, which maybe we'd rather not have to pay for.
Absolutely, and that was something that I raised with MHCLG earlier on today, was the cost. I mean, there's two things, isn't there? There's a cost of doing a by-election, and there's a cost of running the 27 elections if they decide that they want to do it, which again, in my view, is a pointless expense. But we have made them aware of all of the potential issues that there would be around that.
Oh, God, Bob wants one more.
It's
sorry.
It's a very much a supplementary, and it's not quite an agenda item, although I suppose I could have raised it relative to the forecast earlier. But if I could ask Helen, what proportion of your time are you spending on LGR, and indeed your other senior officers? Because obviously it has to be done, but all that work on LGR is not going to running the council and providing our services in the ordinary way. So I'm trying to just assess to what degree LGR is taking our resource away from us.
Yes, so in the real world, it would probably be fine. However, what's happened is I still do my day job in my day hours. My LGR work tends to be between 6 and 9 most evenings. So I'm doing an awful lot of extra hours, as I was talking to the leader about yesterday. But it impacts a little bit on the day job, but not as much as you would have thought, because I managed to sort of squeeze it into some other hours in the day that I wouldn't normally be working.
Alex.
Are the elections for the unitary authorities happening in 2027 as well? Because it would be cheaper, it seems, to run all out if we have to do all out election, or it'd be cheaper to have an all out election for everything at the same time. And there might be some people, if they're allowed to stand as unitaries and as councillors for another year, that would be the cheapest, most efficient option.
The plan is that there will be shadow elections in 27, and candidates from this council or any other council, or indeed anybody else out there, can stand for those shadow elections, as well as being an existing councillor in another authority. So that is a possibility. I think most of the other ones that have gone before us, if you like, have tried to keep it separate because it's a new way of bringing in democracy, but that is something that they could consider doing. At the moment, they are silent on everything.
Just think, quadruple hatters. That would be slightly scary. Joe.
I'm going to put it on the record. I think this is all going to be knocked back and delayed. I think we're probably worrying a little bit too early. I don't think there's a risk of people leaving. That's really an issue for group leaders to manage that. If people are going to leave before the term is up, probably. I understand officers have got to look at the risk, but I think it's really small. And I don't like the idea of there being elected members and shadow members at the same time. I just think that's going to create a strange dynamic, especially if you've got some people that have got that double hat, some that haven't. I don't know, it's almost
unnecessary.
Yeah, you're doing your job, and there's the person who's going to take over
Is yourself.
or may not be yourself, or might be yourself, kind of looking over your shoulder. I just, especially if there's a change in political parties, and yeah, I think it's going to be delayed. I think that'll be the biggest flip flop yet that they're going to come, but I can see that coming. And
That'd be meditative, please.
Please, that's why I said it here. That's why I got my red lights. Yeah. It's still a free country, isn't it? We can say these things.
If only we could tell the future. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think unless there's any other question on no.
The general feeling.
Okay. If without any further questions, let's move on to the recommendations for this item, detailed on page 120 of the agenda pack. Can we have a show of hands to indicate support, please? All those in favour. Thank you very much. Anyone against or abstaining? No, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. To what is the final main item on tonight, item 9, the financial management 2025-2026 Q2 forecast to year end, which is pages 126 to 136 of the agenda pack, and I will speak for the last time on behalf of Carl. So this is the Q2 financial forecast for 25-26. The forecast outturn at the end of Q2 is an overspend of £509,000. A full breakdown of the revenue budget and forecast can be found in Appendix A on pages 133, and an explanation of key variances in Appendix B on page 134. The savings programme has also been reviewed by the leadership team, and in section 1.5 of this report, the previously approved proposals are given a RAG rating according to their progress. It should be noted that over £3 million worth of savings have already been achieved, by value representing over 90% of the total proposed. The biggest variance in Q2 remains a £270,000 income shortfall at Beam. Progress is being made to improve the financial viability of Beam, but there is still some way to go before the venue reaches its full potential. The second largest variance is the £210,000 pressure in business rates, which are subject to an appeal, so this pressure may reduce if the appeal is successful. An improvement of £70,000 has occurred on interest payments on loans and interest receivable, and it is proposed this is transferred to reserves. The pressures within this report have been scrutinised to ensure that the same pressures are not fed into the 26-27 budget. In the capital programme, in Appendix C on page 135, there is a £722,000 underspend, mostly relating to the transformation programme and the ICT rolling programme. The ICT budget is being reviewed, whilst the transformation budget will probably roll forward to next year. Finally, Appendix D on pages 136 shows the aged debt position at the end of Q2, which shows a total reduction in debt of £547,000 over the second quarter. Work on the £1 million of old debt remains ongoing. The recommendations are on pages 126, and I'd like to propose this report to the exec. Could I have a seconder, please? Hermione, thank you very much. Comments, questions, Alex?
Thank you. So if I can ask the question I asked too early before, an item, the recommendation B on page 126 talks about accepting the additional Heritage Lottery Capital Fund grant of 238,000. So I just wondered, is that for the situation where if they're lucky enough to get the Heritage Lottery Fund, or is it to do with the phase 2 and the work that's already happened?
I would need to come back to you on that particular point.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Because I didn't realise that East Hart still had an involvement in the lottery fund.
I think I could be wrong, but I think we're handling it on behalf of the town council. But I think probably maybe confirm that with confirm that from Brian.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? No? Okay. Great. Okay, so there are three recommendations for this report, and they're detailed on page 126 of the agenda pack. Can I have a show of hands to indicate whether you're in favour, please? Thank you very much. Anyone against or abstaining? No. That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Item 10, there is no part 2 business that's been notified. And item 11, urgent business. There's no urgent business. Great. Thank you very much. So at 8:02, I declare the meeting closed.